Guys, I found quite a bit. The Undersecretary for Political Affairs, Victoria Nuland. She's the most dangerous woman in the world right now. Really terrible. And you never hear her name, do you? All right, we're going to jump around a little bit. I've got a gazillion tabs open, but I need them all for some reason or another. Okay. So we had the New Hampshire primaries. We had Iowa. Trump was in Nevada today, stumping there. I'm not clicking with his current followers. I have no idea what happened to them. They're not the same. It's not the same group that came together in 2016. I'm really bummed out. It's totally different campaign. In a way, it has to be because Trump is being attacked constantly and things have changed. And our country is such a big fucked up mess right now. It's not even funny. And I could just give you a gazillion reasons. But let's, I don't even know where to start. But I'd say within even a month of his second term in office, and when I say a month, I mean you're going to see energy prices drop, and energy meaning across the board, gas prices, electricity, all that stuff. You're going to see these wars come to an end. I believe the stock market will begin to do better pretty quickly, although, maybe here and there it'll be manipulated to make it look like, oh, he said something wrong. I mean, this is shit that's been going on for a long time. Since Bush was in office. I believe that whole financial collapse was designed to bring Obama in, and all he did was utilize his Cloward and Piven playbook to, and he brought in this Keynesianism that you can't even find the definitions anymore. I mean, you have to dig through so much stuff to find basic articles that I was looking up, 10 years ago. And then, so then we have Trump as the presumptive nominee. We have him pretty much beating Brandon. And then we have, the political chatter this week, which there are a few sites that I go to right now that are very enlightening, that have enlightened me. And I don't use that word very much. And maybe another time we could talk about that. And there are a few people. Gonzalo Lira, really, when I began to listen to him, I listened to almost every long video he did. And I was helping my mom do some stuff at the time, and I was living, there's 4 bedrooms, but where her house was, my dad's house actually, but I really don't know what she was doing. She was trying to sell it, but all she did was lay on the couch with her feet up the whole time. And just sat there kind of, and went through all his papers so she could make sure she got every last penny. But anyway, I was listening to these podcasts, and it was really weird because I think it kind of drove her nuts, and she didn't understand it because some of these were like an hour and a half long. So I learned a lot from him about things and people in positions of power right now that never even dawned on me, or I never even thought to explore that. Or it solidified what I already kind of, was thinking, or my new belief system, because I've really kind of opened my eyes in the last few years. So if we listen to Scott Bennett, he's talking about something that had me just stopped me in my tracks. All right, listen to this.
Corruption, Biden, Burisma, Rosemont Senate.
You know what I'm going to have to do here is I am going to just maybe get the volume up a little bit. His volume, some of these, it might be too loud, but it's better than not hearing it.
46 biolabs, on and on and on and on and on. and the Russian entrance to stop all of this. And now you've got Israel and Gaza and America getting its butt kicked on a small scale. That's going to get a lot worse if we try and ratchet it. And it struck me that the best hope for a political renaissance in the United States is to carry people in a direction that builds upon Trump's precedent of an outsider, of someone that is independent of the political corruption and the egoism and the narcissism and the selfishness which animates and defines most American politicians.
You know, I was just listening to a podcast today. I was re-listening to it, and the commentator made the point of saying that with the perhaps the exception of Harry Truman, that Donald Trump is the only former president or president to leave the White House that didn't enrich himself financially, that didn't come back. You have Obama, who's living in Chicago. His wife is making most of the bucks. She's making like $300K a year, which is a lot for that time. They live in a house that they bought on an illegal scam where the this Tony Resco thing, that's a whole nother thing. Right down the block from Bill Ayers. You have but they're all of a sudden, they probably had, and that, they had whoever's kids there are, and they had to probably send them to school. And then Obama worked, doing his community errand stuff, his community service job for Acorn or whoever. I mean, these are not exactly, okay, so maybe they were pulling in 400, 300 a year, maybe five. Okay. Mainly kind of just, jobs where you get paid a lot and you're not doing a whole hell of a lot of work. I mean, if you go back and really study Michelle, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like Jesse Jackson Jr. hires. So you have, now they're worth millions. You have the Clintons who Hillary said that she was so afraid when she left the White House they didn't have any money or any furniture or anything. And then the rumor has it that she took all the White House china, which I believe she did. And she just took, raped the country. The Bushes already had money, no negative comments about them. I mean, I don't really see how they're enriching themselves. But the point is that Trump didn't leave the White House where he's like on a big speaking tour and making like $500,000 a speech or something. And making, like even Nikki Haley, just with her little teeny weeny stint at the UN, is bringing in buco bucks for just for being a shill. All right, so now we're speaking about vice presidential people, and I'm going to forward this because he's just.
And brings
Oh,
us
by the way, this is someone who I used to respect.
back to a nostalgic 1970s, 80s, early 1990s remembrance of what America.
Okay, well, I don't know what year Scott was born in, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you a lot of the 70s, the early 70s were okay. You had, Nixon was reelected. We were out of Vietnam. That part of that decade was pretty good. And then as soon as Carter got in, things became quite difficult. And interest rates were extremely high, and it was difficult. And also a lot of the factory jobs were weaning, towards the second half of that decade. The 80s were unbelievable. I don't even see, I mean, the 80s were similar to what Trump's first term was. But that was totally different because, Reagan had been working on that for so long, since I think the 60s. He was going on TV and giving talks about Americanism, if you will. And I'm trying to go kind of fast here. So, I mean, I understand where Scott's coming from, but I think that that's never going to happen again. That what he's talking about would be nice, but with the technology that's in place and everybody having a cell phone and people are used to not working, and our employment numbers are so shitty, and people are just they just choose not to do anything, which the 70s, 80s, and 90s were not like that at all. Actually, the country was not like that at all until Obama became president and ended all the welfare to work type programs where you were required to go to work after a certain period of time. And they would help you get a job, and people, I knew a lot of women that worked for some of my doctors in the central city, and they were proud of themselves and how they brought themselves up. I mean, they took pride in what they did, and they were excited about moving up. And I mean, I know one girl that just started from nothing, that she's got a major job right now, working in the x-ray department at the largest hospital, probably the largest hospital in the state. I know she has a good career. She's tried to contact me on Facebook. I haven't responded just because I don't know. But I worked with her in a, she was a client of mine, and she was a real estate client of mine also after I left, after I got my real estate license. So I think what Scott's talking about sounds all very nice, but I think he's wrong. Okay.
America was, from Mayberry to Huckleberry Finn to an Aw Shucks to a Ronald Reagan reflection. How do we do that? Trump sort of cracked the ice, but the full maneuver to go in this direction of a political renaissance, a political healing through a cathartic, a political moment, an affirmation of the will of the people, is through Donald Trump to make Tucker Carlson his vice president.
Well, I mean,
Trump Tucker.
My God, this is like, are you kidding? I honestly almost just like fell over and I'm on crutches, I'm like, I mean, I can't even believe I am hearing this. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I trust my dad before he passed away explicitly. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I don't know anyone that even watches Tucker Carlson except for if I'm on social media. I mean, in my circle, no one really, the whole, when he takes his eyes and he makes that face and dare I say, it seemed to me like it was acting, like it was his trademark, where he looks at someone like, I'm really paying attention to you, but I'm also really acting at the same time with the 11. He probably got Botox to put the 11 there between his eyes. I don't think he does that so much anymore. I mean, that was like too much. And then I watched him for a few weeks with my dad. We'd try to find something. He was interested in a couple of different things that we'd watch him, that he was speaking about, that I knew my dad was interested in, but my dad's just didn't really like him, and there's nothing to like. And I believe that he's probably doing a hell of a lot better right now with his Elon Musk X shit than he ever did at Fox News. I think that whole thing was staged and planned. I don't think it was just some sort of generic, hey, you're going to get fired. This guy had everything in place. He's got a huge family to support and all this shit. But this guy, are you kidding?
Two outsiders, two non-politicians.
Oh my God. What are you talking about?
Tucker is the younger nephew of Trump in a sense. There's no.
Okay. So in case my thing runs out, I am going to show you a couple of things This is like so bad. Uh, I'm not really sure about this site, how much I read it, but Tucker Carlson, CIA, and the Kabbalah elite ties. The shocking secret history of Carlson, his Kabbalah fet. Am I allowed to talk about this? Tucker Carlson wearing a red Kabbalah bracelet advocating. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. This is July 12th, 2023. Tucker Carlson exposed. The CIA company man does a bear shit in the woods. The shocking secret hidden history. Is Tucker Carlson's trust fund part of the hidden black money offshore cabal banking system? Tucker is not only tied to the CIA, his family is very part of the deep state globalist cabal ruling elite. His father's name is Richard Carlson. He worked in the government and he worked for Voice of America, which is basically propaganda. And that was his career. I can't. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go to another article because this is just a little bit crazy. CIA. Well, here's one. Mint Press, the elite. This is a pretty good one, but these are kind of liberal sites, but they speak the truth. Tucker Carlson, the elite pedigree of a brilliant cosplaying populist. Again, I've read up a lot on this. A lot of this shit's been scrubbed. Tucker Carlson is the hottest media personality in America, comfortably the most watched cable news show. It's a ratings bonanza. Again, no one in my family ever watched him. And they watch Fox News all the time. They were doing something else during that time slot. Anyway. Okay. Because it was at 7, 8 o'clock, that's like where you're cleaning up after dinner, maybe if you're older, you're getting ready for bed. And older, I mean, my parents in their late 80s or mid 80s or whatever. Okay. But, Carlson worked for MSNBC and Fox News in the 90s. And he was employed by, I believe, Fox during 9/11. And if you think he didn't have inside information about a lot of different things that were going on, please think again. Did you ever hear him criticize Obama or call out the real global elite? I have not. All right. Trump is said to be a keen viewer. I don't get that either, but that's okay. Part of Carlson's appeal is that anybody that kind of semi-supports him, Trump is gonna applaud, or he's just gonna know. Here's a good thing. He's gonna know that he gets high ratings, so he's going to be supportive of that person, whether he really is or not, just so that person maybe mentions him or has, or becomes he kind of becomes friends with people, so they want to be friends with him or want to support him. That's kind of where he made his mistakes. But again, I'm kind of rushing. Part of his appeal is that he presents himself as a maverick outsider, someone who thinks outside the box. Give me a break. And is not afraid to launch tirades against the powerful and criticize the government. I can't. He does not surprise many people, covering subjects other than cable news. Like, I've never seen him cover a subject that I didn't already. I've never seen him do something new or interesting ever. I mean, I know he did an interview with Kyle Rittenhouse, and my dad wanted to watch it. That would be the only thing I mean, he never covered anything. He pretended to be concerned and was basically an actor. As far as I was concerned, it was all shit that I already knew just by listening to the sites that I listened to, which I'd never be able to post here. All right. Okay. He doesn't, I don't know why he surprises people. He's never really, he's a dog whistler. He says something, it's got the certain pitch, and you're supposed to just get that idea. You're supposed to pick up on it, but most people won't. But people like me will, like, we already know, but the average Joe isn't going to. I know I'm not making sense. Okay. Tucker Swanson, right there. McNear Carlson was born into a wealthy California family in 1969. He attended a number of private prep schools in Cali and New England, including the exclusive St. George's School in Rhode Island, where today attendance costs between $46,000 and $67,000 per year. From there, he went on to study history at Trinity College, a private Connecticut liberal arts institution that charges similar fees. He's blue blood through and through. His great uncle was Arkansas Senator William Fulbright, while his stepmother, Patricia Swanson, is the heiress to the Swanson frozen food company fortune. He knows what the fuck is going on, but he's never going to really tell you. Sort of like Anderson Cooper, That's another thing. People point out how Anderson Cooper is involved in, and I'm going to use your words, not mine, deep state, the cabal, the global elite, when actually Tucker is like even more is just as deep in there. And they both have CIA ties. Carlson openly described himself as a trust fund baby. I'm extraordinarily loaded with just from money I inherited from a number of trust funds, he said in 2008. So, like, he really needed the money from Fox News? No. His father, Richard Dick Carlson, is an important journalist and a high state official who was appointed by Ronald Reagan as director of U.S. Information Agency. I got it. USIA, the body that oversees government-funded media, including Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Radio and TV, Marte, and Voice of America, of which Dick was also the director. Right there. He learned from Daddy. USIA has since been replaced by the U.S. Agency for Global Media. Oh God, who did that? Who made that change? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was probably Clinton could have been anybody. Clinton or Obama, I'm guessing. I might be wrong. Together, these outlets are part of what the New York Times called a worldwide propaganda network built by the CIA. Their goal is to bombard enemy countries with regime change propaganda. Until the 1970s, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty was directly funded by the CIA. Honestly, how much more do you need to know? His position as director of USIA, Dick played a considerable part of the downfall of the Soviet Union. In a 1990 event alongside media moguls Rupert Murdoch and Ted Turner, he noticed that his international broadcasting played a very critical role, as was suggested by Mr. Murdoch, in the events that took place in the USSR and Eastern Europe in the past couple of years. Listening to his speech, it is clear he saw his primary role as being to bring about regime change. In fact, he was proud of it, stating, this is what really surprises me about Scott Bennett. My antenna is up with Scott now. I don't trust him worth a shit. International broadcasters were equally important in laying the groundwork for the democratic revolutions that we have seen. Isn't it incredible how Western all those Eastern Europeans sound in talking about freedom, democracy, free enterprise, environmental concerns, and they didn't get those ideas from their own media or from textbooks in their own countries. They got them mainly from international broadcasters like Voice of America, the BBC, Radio Liberty, and Radio Free Europe. In the same job, Dick was a key component in the ultimately successful attempt to bring down the leftist Sandinista government in Nicaragua through hybrid warfare. The U.S. bombarded the country with incessant propaganda, funding local media outlets that preached regime change, amplifying fake news and scare stories, and supplying enormous amounts of weapons and training to far-right death squads that labeled themselves Contras, short for counter-revolutionaries. U.S. trained and armed death squads would go on to carry out the massacres across Central America through the 1980s, killing hundreds of thousands of people. Is that the kind of reminiscent, like old time USA you want to bring back here, Scott? What a joke. Dear God. Sounds like a plan there, bud. Dick would later be appointed, I'm being facetious, by President George H.W. Bush as U.S. ambassador to the Seychelles. Oh, that sounds nice. And so, I mean, it's a tropic island, right? And serve at a number of neoconservative think tanks. Chief among those is the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, an organization widely accused of being little more than a front for the Israel lobby. Indeed, when asked point blank if that were the case, he refused to deny it, stating only that Israel is a country under siege. It's a democracy in a part of the world where there are no democracies. Oh my God, no, it's not. It's an ethno state. It's all about your ethnicity and your religion. You can't just go in there. It's not just a straight democracy. The U.S. isn't either, but that's okay because this is propaganda. It is under constant irregular terrorist attack and threat. It's the other way around. That's my problem. Also on the board of the FDD at the time were Jeane Kirkpatrick, a high official at the center of the Iran-Contra affair, the operation where the U.S. sold weapons to Iran to fund Nicaraguan death squad, and R. James Woolsey, CIA director from 1993 to 1995. Dick would later team up with Woolsey again at the Institute for the Study of Terrorism and Political Violence. That's another thing. When you go to bed at night in this country of 50 states and thousands of square miles and about 360 million people, maybe more now that borders have been wide open, do you go to bed worrying about terrorism? Oh my God, an Islamic terrorist is going to come in my room in the middle of the night. You might be worried that someone's going to come in the middle of the night and rob you. The United States, you can have personal protection. I do. Or take a course so you know how to keep yourself safe in a situation like that. But I'm not worried about a bunch of terrorists taking over my apartment building. I'm not at the southern border, so I don't know what that's like. I'm pretty far north here. I'm almost all the way to the top here of the country. God help me. All right. We could go on. I'm going to attach this article to the vid. So if we keep going, here's Tucker on his time in Nicaragua. Oh my God. I remember when he was on MSNBC. He's like such a fairy, All right, well, let's get out of here for a moment. This is such a good article. It details everything so perfectly. I so appreciate this. If we go back, and I'm ready to shit my pants here. Not really, but
no competition. They're not going for the same girls. They're, you know, one's the older uncle and Tucker's a younger guy. He's only
What a load of crap.